Oh, well, amidst a lot happening in Africa, we take interest tonight on what is happening in Nigeria, the supposed economic power in Africa. Nigerians are preparing for widespread protests this week in response to what many are calling the most severe cost of living crisis the country has faced in decades. The crisis has been exacerbated by soaring inflation, increasing fuel prices, and a general rise in the cost of essential goods and services. With the situation deteriorating, many Nigerians are turning to social media to organize and rally support for the upcoming demonstrations, which began today. To press home their legitimate demands concerning the cost of living crisis, insecurity, and the worrisome drift in the shape of state, Nigerian youths have resolved to go on the 10 days nationwide protests from the 1st, which is today of August, to the 10th of August 2024.
Some prominent northern leaders have endorsed the idea and believe it reflects their national sentiment and reality. The people of the Niger Delta have raised concerns about the motives behind the planned protest. Also revealed in the anti-protest protesters who seem not to even understand what the anti-protest against the end bad government protest was really about, as they were seen speaking in one voice with the protesters speaking against the current government they consider bad.
Take you of drinking Gary. Where we say before 100 naira you will drink Gary and do what you want to do. So now we are coming to make him to know that things are very hard with us. Let him consider us.
Thank you. So we're also going to be talking to one of the protesters.
As you can see there, that video is courtesy of a Nigerian television, AIT, and it was spread all across social media. It is interesting to see, but then authorities are particularly concerned about the possibility of this protest spiraling into violence reminiscent of the 2020 NSARS protest against police brutality, which resulted in significant unrest and fatalities. Speaking on the reasons why the government of Nigeria is skeptical and seemingly against the protest with these restrictions, the senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, on Channels TV, had this to say.
Nigerians to protest. The government has not denied the right of Nigerians to protest for or against the government, because that is a constitutional right. But what I think the government is worried about is the possibility that violence might occur. Again, from my experience, in protests. I've taken part in protests for over 40 years in the country. Young people or workers have never gone out determined to engage in violence all the time. Violence had always occurred going back to the 70s when students are shot, unarmed students are shot. The last time, people are now destroying our history, distorting our history by saying, in 2020, young people were violent. No. The young people took part in the protest, in the NSAS protest, gathered in different places. In a place like Lagos, they gathered in Alausa at the Secretariat. They also gathered at Lekki. And they were singing and discussing among themselves. People were giving them food. What happened was that the attack on the youth started in Alausa here when a notorious transporter in Lagos, a notorious union leader, sent his thugs to attack the unarmed youths in Alausa. They overpowered the thugs, but the police did not arrest or charge them. The same thing happened in Abuja, in Benin, in Port Harcourt and other places. And of course, until the government decided to unleash people you call hoodlums and thugs on the young people. When that did not work, the government sent troops, armed soldiers, to engage in killing of young people. In 1 week, about 99 people were killed in Lagos. I don't want to talk about Ogbomoso, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, and Benin, and other places where young people were shot at, where young people were killed. So the violence that characterized the end of the NSAS protest was instigated and fueled and sponsored by the government.
Well, despite the national sentiment and reality that fueled the resolve for this protest in Nigeria, several state governments, including the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, Abuja, preemptively obtained court orders to restrict the movement of protesters and impose time limits on their demonstrations. The situation reveals the government, for one, stifling freedom of expression due to the fact that state governments, including the Federal Capital Territory, have obtained court orders to restrict the movement of protesters, demonstrates an effort to curtail public dissent and suppress the right to peaceful assembly. By limiting where and when protesters can demonstrate, the government effectively undermines the freedom of expression guaranteed to its citizens, and as well going against legality because the issuance of court orders to restrict protest preemptively rather than responding to specific instances of violence or disruption suggests an overreach of authority. Such actions may contravene legal principles that protect the right to protest and due process, as they impose broad and potentially unjustified limitations on public demonstrations without addressing individual legal breaches. This proactive restriction contradicts the principle of legality, which requires that legal measures be justified by actual and specific threats rather than speculative concerns.
Reports has it that there are some recent happenings on the President Bola Tinubu's first year in office that contributed to widespread discontent amongst Nigerian youths, leading to protests against what they have tagged and bad governance. The first is the removal of fuel subsidies. The most significant triggers was the removal of fuel subsidies in May 2023 for Nigerians. This policy change led to a sharp increase in fuel prices, causing widespread hardship and skyrocketing transportation and living costs, which directly impacted the daily lives of many Nigerians. The economic hardship and inflation, the removal of subsidies, combined with other economic policies, contributed to severe inflation and a deteriorating standard of living. The high cost of goods and services exacerbated financial strain on ordinary Nigerians, particularly the youths. High unemployment rates. Persistent high unemployment rates, especially among the youth, fueled frustration and a sense of disenfranchisement. Many young Nigerians felt that the government was not addressing the root causes of joblessness and economic instability. Even security concerns. They continue challenges with security, including ongoing violence and insurgency in various parts of the country, further eroded trust in the government's ability to maintain order and protect citizens. Corruption allegations. Accusations of corruption and mismanagement involving government officials and agencies heightened frustration. Perceptions of lack of accountability and transparency in government dealings undermined public confidence. These issues collectively contributed to a growing sense of disillusionment, prompting youth-led protests against what they viewed as effective and detrimental governance.
Oh, well, with these reasons for the protest, it's no wonder why so many Nigerians believe that the anti-protest protests are indeed orchestration, a propaganda orchestration to their movement and not the true feelings of the majority in Nigeria, as was seen in that video played prior. Well, amongst the issues Nigerians are protesting and asking for solutions for is the fuel crisis, because as is obvious by now, whatever the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was trying to do by removing fuel subsidy didn't work. It only made the economic situation for the masses worse and prolonged. On Tuesday, local media reported that protest organizers rejected a proposal from Nigeria's police to confine their rallies to designated spaces. The police offer was seen by many as an attempt to limit the impact and visibility of the protest. In response, organizers have insisted on holding the demonstrations in more prominent public areas to maximize their reach and impact.
On the other hand, Human Rights Watch has expressed concern over the government's stance, suggesting that the official response indicates a troubling readiness to suppress dissent. The organization pointed out that there are already signs of an organized counter-movement aimed at undermining the protests, which further complicates the situation. The ongoing economic hardships have highlighted deep-seated issues within Nigeria's economy and governance, and the response to these protests will likely serve as a significant indicator of the current administration's approach to handling civil unrest and public dissent.
Well, Peter Obi has criticized the government's approach, denouncing the use of intimidation to address civil issues and expressing hope that the protest will lead to a reduction in the inflated dollar rate and a reevaluation of the controversial fuel subsidy removal. As Nigerians navigate this turbulent period, the outcome of these protests will serve as a critical gauge of the administration's handling of civil unrest and its commitment to addressing public grievances. Well, we're hoping that by the end of these protests, instead of seeing yet another African government that represents a dictatorial regime that solves civil problems and concerns with intimidation, effective change is seen like the dollar rate that skyrocketed since the new government from about 500 in the black market to 1,800 in naira. We hope that that's going to bring a reduction to that and fall back to a rational figure that reduces the impact of inflation on the entire Nigerian population and brings some sense of calm again.